"You're embarrassing yourself, Dad. Everyone thinks you're losing it." That's what my daughter, Melissa, said in front of her friends that night. Her tone was light, teasing even, but there was something sharp beneath it. Like she wanted to make sure they heard. I'm Henry Cole, 74 years old, from Denver, Colorado. I've lived long enough to know when a laugh isn't really a laugh. We were sitting at her dining table, a polished thing, too glossy for comfort, while her friends sipped wine and pretended not to look at me. I'd told a simple story about my late wife, Grace, how she used to hum while she cooked. Nothing strange. Nothing that should have earned me those looks. But Melissa leaned in, touched my shoulder, and said softly, "Dad, maybe you should rest. You've been repeating yourself lately." Her friends laughed politely. I just smiled. There's a moment when dignity doesn't shout. It just sits quietly and holds its breath. That's what I did. Then she pulled a paper from her purse. "It's just a form," she said. "Something the doctor suggested. It'll help me take care of things for you." I looked at her hands. They trembled slightly, not from fear, but from impatience. She pushed a pen toward me, the same pen I'd given her years ago when she graduated college. I still remember her smile that day, proud, bright, full of promise. I never thought that same smile would make me feel so small. "What kind of things?" I asked. "Oh, just bills, mail, appointments, that sort of stuff. You don't need to worry about it," she said, her voice sweet but distant. "It's just easier this way." I could feel everyone's eyes on me. For a second I thought about refusing, about telling her that I still balanced my checkbook every Sunday, that my mind was sharp enough to remember every number, every date, every word Grace whispered to me before she passed. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I smiled. I took the pen, and I signed my name. When I looked up, Melissa sighed in relief, then laughed lightly as if we'd just completed a harmless chore. Her friends went back to talking about vacations and new jobs. I sat there, watching their mouths move, their laughter filling the room, and realized I was no longer part of their world, just a figure they allowed to sit at the edge of it. As we drove home, she didn't speak much. Her phone kept buzzing. I glanced at her profile in the glow of the dashboard lights, confident, composed, distant. When she dropped me off at my house, she said, "You'll thank me later, Dad." The front door closed softly behind me. I placed the pen on my desk, right where I used to keep Grace's letters. I looked at the line of my signature still fresh in my mind. Steady, clean, familiar. But for the first time in my life, I had no idea what I had just signed away. Silence filled the room like a second heartbeat. The first thing I noticed was the locks. A week after that dinner, my house key didn't fit quite right. Melissa said she'd change them for safety. I didn't argue. She said it was because I'd forgotten to lock the door once last month, except I hadn't. I'd checked it twice that night before bed. Still, I told her I appreciated her concern. That's how it began. Small changes, subtle, quiet. Then came the phone calls. Every time I tried to pay my bills or speak to the bank, someone would tell me my representative had already handled it. My representative, my daughter. I still remember sitting in my armchair, phone in hand, staring at the empty line after the operator said that word, representative. It felt like I'd been replaced in my own life. Melissa started visiting more, but not in the way she used to. No coffee, no conversation. Just lists, papers, plans. She'd walk through each room like she was checking off a survey. "You don't really use this furniture anymore, do you?" she'd ask, or I'll take this old silver to storage. Less clutter. Clutter. That's what she called Grace's wedding china. The hardest part was her tone. Always kind, always professional, like she was managing a client, not caring for her father. One evening, I found a new set of pill bottles lined neatly on the counter. I didn't recognize the names. "Doctor changed your prescriptions," she said. "It's all organized now." "But I haven't seen my doctor in months," I replied. She smiled. "You must have forgotten. It's fine, Dad." Forgotten. That word started following me everywhere. I tried to reach her one night just to talk, just to hear her voice in a way that wasn't clipped and businesslike. She didn't answer. I left a message, then another. By morning, I'd convinced myself she was just busy. But that evening, I overheard a voicemail she hadn't erased when she handed me her phone to show a photo. It was one of her friends laughing. "So your dad really thinks he's still running things? Poor guy. Guess it's good you stepped in before he does something stupid." I didn't say anything. I just handed her phone back and pretended I hadn't heard. Later that night, I walked into my study, or what used to be my study. My files were gone. My bank statements, my old checkbooks, even Grace's letters, boxed, labeled, to be reviewed. I sat down at the desk and stared at the pen I'd signed with that night. The same pen she'd given me when she was 23. Silver, engraved with her initials. MC. She said it was her way of thanking me for believing in her. I picked it up now, felt its weight. It didn't feel like gratitude anymore. It felt like surrender. For the first time in my life, I didn't trust my own reflection. When I passed the hallway mirror, I caught myself studying the man in it, trying to see what she saw. Confusion, weakness, decline. But I didn't find it. My mind was clear. My hands were steady. The problem wasn't memory. It was trust. Something was breaking between us. Quietly, piece by piece, us all me, and I didn't know how to stop it. I didn't sleep much after that. Every sound in the house felt heavier somehow. The creak of a step, the soft hum of the refrigerator. It wasn't fear exactly. It was awareness. Like I had to stay alert in my own home. A few mornings later, I found a new notice slipped under my door. It was from the bank. Account access updated. My name was still printed at the top, but in smaller letters below it read, "Co-managed by Melissa Cole." I didn't remember approving that. That's when I called Robert Hale, my oldest friend, and for 40 years, my lawyer. He'd retired to the mountains, but when he heard my voice, he didn't hesitate. "Come by tomorrow," he said, "and bring whatever you signed." I didn't have the paper. Melissa had taken it, but I described it as best I could. 2 pages, faint blue letterhead, and my signature near the bottom. Robert didn't say much as I talked. He just rubbed his chin the way he used to in court. Then he asked, "Henry, did it have a witness line?" "Yes," I said. "She said it was just protocol." He leaned back, sighed softly. "That wasn't a medical release or a bill authorization. It sounds like a durable guardianship form. That gives her control over your finances and health decisions." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. "You mean she owns me now?" He gave me a sad smile. "Not owns, but she can speak for you. Legally." I stared at the old brass scales on his desk, the ones we used to joke about. How justice always tipped toward whoever had the better pen. That night, I sat in my kitchen with Grace's photograph beside me. I spoke to her like I used to when she was alive. "You'd know what to do," I whispered. "You always did." I thought about calling Melissa, but what would I say? Did you mean to take my life away? Or did you just stop seeing me as a person? Instead, I opened the drawer where I kept our old family papers. And that's when I found something I hadn't touched in years. The folder marked Grace's estate. Inside were deeds, certificates, and a copy of her trust. My name was still on everything. I ran my hand across the paper, remembering her handwriting in the margins, her small notes about fairness and protection. She'd written once, "If anything happens to me, make sure Henry's safe, even from those who mean well." I never understood that line until now. Melissa thought I was losing control, but Grace had made sure that wasn't true. The house, the land, even the savings, all of it was tied to me through her trust. I placed the folder on my desk next to the silver pen and whispered, "You didn't take everything from me, sweetheart. Not yet." The next morning, I locked the folder in the bottom drawer. For the first time in weeks, I felt a small spark of clarity. If Melissa wanted control, she'd have to look a lot deeper. And she'd never think to look where her mother's handwriting still lived. 2 weeks later, I came home to find strangers in my living room. Movers, polite, efficient, expressionless. Melissa stood by the doorway with her arms crossed. "Don't look at me like that, Dad," she said. "It's for your own good." I asked her what was happening, though I already knew. The furniture, the framed photographs, even Grace's piano, they were being packed away. She said the house was too big, too dangerous for someone my age. "You'll love the new place," she promised. "It's quiet, modern, with staff who can help if you forget things." Forget things. That phrase again. She spoke it like a verdict. I looked around the room, the home Grace and I built with our own hands. The light through the bay window still hit the same spot on the rug where our daughter used to play as a child. Everything smelled faintly of lemon oil in the past. "Melissa," I said softly, "this is my home." "I know," she replied, her tone clipped, "but it's not safe anymore. You've had a few close calls, the stove, the door. It's time." "It's time for what?" I asked. She didn't answer, just turned and told the movers to be careful with the china. Grace's wedding china. I wanted to argue, to demand she stop, but there was something in her face. Exhaustion mixed with irritation. I realized that to her, I wasn't her father anymore. I was a responsibility, a file to manage. That night, I slept in an unfamiliar bed, in a small apartment the agency called assisted living. The walls were beige, the air smelled like bleach and oatmeal, and the silence was thick enough to choke on. When she left, she hugged me quickly and said, "You'll thank me for this, Dad." Then she drove away, without looking back. The first night was the worst. I stared at the ceiling for hours, listening to the clock tick, wondering when exactly she stopped seeing me as the man who raised her. In the morning, I found a cardboard box by the door, labeled miscellaneous. She must have left it behind by accident. Inside were a few of my things: an old photograph of Grace, a pair of cufflinks, and a bundle of letters tied with a thin blue ribbon. Grace's handwriting. The smell of her perfume still lingered faintly on the paper. My hands trembled as I untied the ribbon. I read through the letters, small notes she'd written during her chemotherapy, ones I'd never seen. In one, she wrote, "If I'm not here, promise me you won't let anyone decide who you are, not even our daughter." At the bottom of the stack was an envelope I didn't recognize. It was sealed, yellowed with age, and on the front, in her graceful handwriting, were just 2 words. For Henry. I didn't open it right away. I just held it against my chest and closed my eyes. That night, I sat by the small window and watched the lights of Denver flicker in the distance. The city I'd helped build, the world I'd given everything to, now felt like it belonged to someone else. But in that envelope, I could feel something waiting. Something Grace had left behind, maybe for this exact moment. The room held its breath. When I finally opened the envelope, my hands shook so much I almost tore it. Inside was a single folded sheet of stationery, the kind Grace used to keep in her bedside drawer. The ink had faded, but her words were still clear enough to read by the weak morning light. Henry, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and life has started testing you again. I know you. You'll face it quietly, with too much grace for your own good. But promise me one thing. Never let anyone take your dignity, not even out of love. I read it twice, then a third time. It was as if she knew this moment would come, that our daughter, out of pride or fear or control, would forget who I was. I folded the letter and placed it back in the envelope, then tucked it inside my jacket pocket. It felt like armor. Later that morning, Melissa came to visit. Her heels clicked down the hallway before I saw her. "How are you adjusting?" she asked, glancing around the small room. "I'm fine," I said. She smiled politely, as if she didn't believe me. "Good. The staff says you've been quiet. That's good. Routine helps." I watched her study the room, my few belongings, the empty table, the missing photographs. "You can bring anything you like from the house," she said. "Just make a list and I'll have someone pack it." "I don't need anything," I told her. She hesitated. "Dad, I know this isn't easy, but it's what's best. You weren't managing well on your own. I need you to trust me." I nodded. "I do trust you, sweetheart." She looked relieved, and that was the hardest part. She truly believed she was doing the right thing. When she left, I sat in silence for a long while. The envelope felt warm in my pocket. That's when I noticed something strange. A second sheet, hidden behind the first. It wasn't another letter. It was a small note, handwritten and brief. "If she forgets who you are, remind her what you built together." At first, I didn't understand. Then I remembered something. The front gate of the property. The old iron arch I'd restored myself. Grace had insisted we carve a name into it, the name of the foundation I'd set up years ago in her honor. A nonprofit that now funded several senior homes across Colorado, including this one. My daughter had unknowingly placed me in a home that bore my own name. The air in the room felt still, heavy with a strange peace. I didn't feel angry, not even proud. Just quiet. Grace's handwriting had led me home in a way neither of them could have planned. The following Friday, Melissa showed up again, earlier than usual, nervous this time. Her smile was thin, the kind you wear when you've been caught off guard by your own conscience. "Hey, Dad," she said, setting her purse down on the chair beside my bed. I wanted to check how you're settling in." I gestured toward the small window. Still breathing, still watching the same tree every morning. She gave a small laugh, but her eyes darted away. "You know, the staff here speaks really highly of you. They said you've been polite, quiet, even helpful." "I try not to make anyone's job harder," I said. Her gaze softened for a moment. Then she noticed the framed photo of Grace I'd set on the table beside the bed. "You brought Mom," she said quietly. I nodded. "She's always here, even when you don't see her." That seemed to unsettle her. She walked to the window, crossing her arms. Dad, I know you think I went too far, but I did this because I care about you. You weren't keeping up with things. The bills, the stove, your medications. I didn't want to lose you. Her voice cracked slightly on the last sentence. I wanted to believe her. Maybe I still did, partly. But love without respect can feel a lot like control. Melissa, I said softly, have you ever driven past the front gate of this place? Really looked at it? She frowned. The gate? Why? Humor an old man. Next time you drive in, read the name on the arch. She gave a confused laugh. Dad, what are you talking about? I smiled gently. Just do that for me. Her eyes narrowed slightly, as if she sensed something beneath the calm. You're not making sense again. Is this one of your... Please, I interrupted quietly. Just promise me you'll look. For a moment, the air between us hung still. Then she sighed. Fine. I'll look. Whatever you say. She leaned down and kissed my forehead, her lips cool against my skin. Try to rest, okay? I'll see you next week. After she left, I sat by the window and watched her car pull away. I could picture the moment it would happen, when her headlights passed under the iron arch, and she'd finally read the words, the Grace Cole Foundation. She'd never asked where the name came from. Never knew that I'd donated the land years ago, after Grace died, to create a network of senior homes for people like us. People who'd given their lives to others and been forgotten. The home she thought she'd placed me in was one I'd built. Quietly, anonymously. The room felt lighter somehow, as if Grace herself had just walked in and sat beside me. I whispered, You were right, my love. She just needed reminding. The next morning, the staff told me my daughter had called. They said her voice had trembled when she asked if she could visit again. Soon. She arrived on a Sunday afternoon, wearing sunglasses, even though it was cloudy. Her steps were slower this time. She paused at the front gate before coming in. I could tell because she mentioned it the moment she entered my room. Dad, she said softly, why didn't you tell me? I looked up from my chair. Tell you what, sweetheart, that this place, it's yours. The Grace Cole Foundation. Your name's on every plaque in the lobby. You built this. Her voice was small, stunned. All this time I thought... I let her words trail off. She walked closer, her eyes glistening. Why didn't you say anything when I brought you here? Why let me treat you like a burden? I finished for her gently. Because you needed to see it for yourself. You wouldn't have believed me if I told you. She sat on the edge of the bed, head in her hands. I feel so ashamed. I reached out, resting my hand on hers. Shame isn't what I want you to feel. Understanding, maybe. Grace and I built this place because we knew someday people like us would be forgotten by the ones they loved most. But I never thought that lesson would come from you. Tears welled in her eyes. Dad, I don't deserve your kindness. No, I said quietly. You deserve to remember what kindness looks like. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The sound of rain outside filled the silence between us. Soft, rhythmic, almost like breathing. Finally, she said, I'll make this right. I'll take you home. I shook my head. Home isn't about walls. It's about peace. Grace built this with me, and I feel her here. But if you really want to make it right, come back next week. Not as my daughter, but as a volunteer. She looked at me, surprised. A volunteer? Yes, I said. Help the people who don't have anyone visiting them. That'll mean more than any apology. Her lips trembled. Okay, Dad. I will. When she left, she hugged me. Really hugged me this time, like she used to when she was little. I could smell her perfume and her tears mixed together. After she was gone, I took out Grace's letter one last time. I traced her handwriting with my finger and whispered. She saw it, Grace. She finally saw. The room felt still, but not empty. For the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. It's been 3 months since that day. Melissa visits every Sunday now. She brings flowers, sometimes roses, sometimes the wild daisies Grace used to love. She doesn't talk much when she first comes in. She just sits with me, watches the light change through the window, and listens. Last week she brought coffee and 2 pastries. They're from that bakery you and Mom used to take me to, she said. I didn't know they still made your favorite. She was wrong about that. They hadn't stopped making it. She'd just stopped remembering what I liked. But I didn't correct her. Some things don't need to be said out loud. She told me she'd started volunteering with the residents, reading to them, helping in the garden, even organizing movie nights. I could see the change in her eyes, a kind of gentleness that hadn't been there in years. One of the nurses stopped me in the hallway the other day. She smiled and said, "Your daughter's wonderful. Everyone loves her here." I nodded but didn't say anything. Part of me wanted to tell her the whole story, how that same daughter once called me confused, weak, embarrassing. But another part of me knew it didn't matter anymore. People grow differently when guilt turns into love. Some nights I lie awake and wonder if Grace planned all of this. Maybe that's what her letter was really about, not protecting me, but guiding our daughter back home in her own way. I keep the envelope by my bed. It's worn now, edges soft from being read so many times. Sometimes I take it out and just hold it. It reminds me that silence can be louder than anger, and patience can teach lessons words never could. Still, there are moments when I wonder if I did the right thing. Staying quiet, letting her believe I was helpless until she found out the truth on her own. So I'm asking you, the ones listening to my story, what should I do now? Should I forgive her completely, forget how she treated me, and let her start fresh? Should I keep some distance, love her, but never fully trust her again? Or should I make her truly understand what her actions cost, even if it means losing her a second time? Because no matter what she's done, and no matter how deep the hurt goes, she's still my daughter, and I still love her.